Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video will be my vlog slash review for Gabriel's Rapture by Sylvain Renard and the passionflix adaptation. I'm so sorry it took me this long to finally do this video. I feel like it's been almost a year since part 1 came out. So I apologize it's taken me so long to film this video. I just knew it would kind of take me a long time because the book is pretty long. I think it's like almost 400 pages and the movies are really long, so I just knew it was going to take me a while to do this video. But I'm finally doing it. I'm finally going to reread this book and then watch the 3 parts. I did react to the trailer for part 1 of Gabriel's Rapture, so I will link that down below. I'm also going to link my review for Gabriel's Inferno. I did a video for all 3 parts, so I will link all of those down below. This is obviously the second book in the Gabriel's Inferno series, and this will be a reread for me. This is actually going to be my 4th read of this book. This is actually one of my most read series, which is kind of crazy, but I really do love it. The first time I read this was back in 2014, and then my most recent read of this was back in June of 2020. The 3 previous times that I've read this, I have rated it 4 stars. I am curious to see if I'm going to still rate it 4 stars, maybe higher, maybe lower. Like I said, I am going to watch all 3 parts of Gabriel's Rapture in this video. I decided to wait until all 3 parts were out so I could just do it all together in one video. I didn't really like the way that I did Gabriel's Inferno, how I pretty much reread the entire book and then I just waited till each part came out. Like I watched the first part in the first video, but the other 2 parts I had to wait for, which I just didn't like. I feel like it kind of ruined the experience for me. Like I'd rather reread the book and then watch all 3 parts all together. So that is what I'm doing for the second book in the series. I'm actually really excited to reread this book and watch the movies. I really enjoyed what they did with Gabriel's Inferno, so I'm very excited to see what they do with this book. I honestly kind of stayed away from everything. I didn't really want to see too much, so luckily I haven't seen a lot of scenes or anything like that. I mean, obviously I do know what happens in this book, or I remember some of it, but I still want to be somewhat surprised on how they bring scenes to life. I know they're currently filming Gabriel's Redemption right now, which is really exciting. I don't know if they're also going to split it up into 3 parts. I'm assuming they will, just to keep everything consistent, but it's exciting to know that they're already filming for the next book. I think that's kind of it for this intro, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on my reread of Gabriel's Rapture. I'm currently 205 pages in. I just kind of stopped where there was like a break. I'm pretty much halfway through Gabriel's Rapture. I would say it takes probably about 180 pages to really get to the main important conflict. Even though I love this series, I will say it is pretty slow. The books always kind of take a long time to get to the main point of the book. I do love how open and honest Gabriel and Julia are with each other. Yes, they occasionally hold secrets, but I don't feel like they hide their secrets for very long, and when they do, they fully discuss why they kept a secret, and usually it's because they want to protect each other. But I feel like even then they like really communicate about the problem and the issue. So even though they hide things, I feel like they communicate very, very well. Aside from the beginning of them in Italy and the main conflict, I don't feel like I remembered anything else about this book. So it's been nice to have a refresher. I feel like I just have a really bad memory in general, so it's always nice for me to revisit books after a couple of years because I don't remember much. I'm definitely going to finish the rest of this book today and then hopefully at least watch part 1 tonight. I did want to also watch part 2, but I don't know how long each part is, so we'll see. This book is 413 pages, so I still have 200 pages left to go. As I'm reading this, it is making me more and more excited to watch the movies, so I kind of just want to hurry up and finish this book so I can watch the movies. I finished Gabriel's Rapture about an hour ago, and I am conflicted on a 4-star. I feel like it's more of a 3.5 out of 5 stars for me. Not because I found anything boring, but I just feel like some stuff kind of dragged. Obviously, I don't want to spoil anything, but there is kind of this moment where Gabriel and Julia are separated, and I feel like that really dragged, and that was a little boring for me. I definitely kind of skimmed through some of their separation. I definitely forget how fast the ending was and how quickly things kind of resolved. Knowing me, I'm probably still gonna rate it a 4-star on Goodreads because I still really did love Gabriel and Julia, and specifically in the beginning, I forget how romantic Gabriel is. I feel like he truly loves Julia and he does everything for her. Also, if you hear movement in the background, it is just my cat playing toys. I honestly feel like I don't have much to say about this book in general. Like, there's not anything that I hated. It was just a little boring at times, and there definitely could have been a little bit more editing. Other than that, I loved revisiting Gabriel and Julia, and I'm very excited to see how they bring this story to life on the screen. I feel like it is kind of hard to talk about this because this is a sequel. Like, it's not the first book in the series, and I don't want to say anything that kind of could potentially spoil this book or even the first book. I mean, it literally picks up after the first book. But if you want to know what the first book is about, it follows Gabriel, who is a professor, and Julia, who is his new student. They somewhat embark on this affair, but they sort of have this mysterious secretive past. So I'm on the passionflix website right now. So it says Gabriel's Rapture Part 1, the Gabriel's Inferno series. It is an hour and 34 minutes. It's rated R, so it's not safe for work on their rating scale thing. I've already watched the trailer for part 1. I don't think I'm gonna watch the trailers for part 2 and part 3 just because I don't want to make this video super long, and I tend to not really enjoy passionflix's trailers, so I think I'm just gonna jump straight into the movie, and I will update you guys when I have something to share.
I would like you to do something for me.
What?
I would like you to talk to someone about what happened.
I talk to you.
I think it would help if you had someone to talk to about everything.
I'm about 46 minutes into part 1, and I'm liking it. It's definitely slow, but that was kind of like the book too, the beginning, before they went back home. There's a lot of shots of them walking, a lot of scenery shots, which I don't blame them because Italy is beautiful and I would take all the scenery shots as well. So I don't blame them for having a lot of those shots, but I definitely think they could have cut that out. There was like one major sex scene, and I think they did a really good job with it. I think the intro was a little different. They added a little bit more to the intro, which was kind of nice. So far the acting is pretty good. I think I am enjoying this more than Gabriel's Inferno. I do kind of wish I would have rewatched the first 3 movies before moving on to all of these ones, but I just didn't really have time to rewatch them, so maybe I will have to do that at a later time. But so far I'm enjoying part 1, and I think I'm just gonna go ahead and finish it.
Why weren't you surprised?
Because this is what she does.
Does or did?
What's the difference?
If I have to explain that to you, then we are more damaged than I thought.
She'd show up on occasion and...
Okay, so I just finished part 1 of Gabriel's Rapture, and I liked it. I will say it was a little boring at times, specifically in the beginning, but the second half was really good. I did like it. It was a little bit more entertaining. Part 1 did end around page 118 and 119. I really liked the scene where they're talking about sticky little leaves. I love how that scene was shot. I love how there was this like kind of intense music. It reminded me of The Leftovers. I don't know why, but it kind of gave me those vibes where they were talking about something really, really deep and then having this like beautiful music in the background. Also, like the argument slash like fight that they had about Paulina was pretty good. Their acting is pretty good. They have like the odd scene where it's like not really that great or just feels like a little awkward, but I don't know, I feel like overall both actors do a really good job, and I do really love both of their portrayals of Julia and Gabriel. I think that's it I have to say about part 1, so I'm going to sleep on everything and I'm going to continue part 2 and part 3 tomorrow.
What are you doing?
Keeping you warm.
I think it's broken. It's stuck.
It's now the next day and I had to do some stuff this morning. I got a haircut this morning, so my hair looks a little shorter. And I actually already started on part 2. Part 2 is an hour and 42 minutes. So it's a little bit longer than part 1, and I'm actually currently 54 minutes into part 2. Basically, we picked up right at page 119. So Gabriel and Julia are back in Toronto. I will say I find it really, really funny how they spend money to go film in Italy and Belize, yet they can't actually film in Toronto. I find it so funny how they can't actually film in Canada, but they can film anywhere else. Like in the book, part 2 is getting a little bit more interesting. We're finally getting into the actual plot and like the main conflict of the book. I'm really liking all the other actors that they've hired, the lawyers, the dean. So far everybody else is great. I'm loving all of the casting. I also find it really funny the height difference between Julia and Melanie. To me, it's really obvious when Melanie has to stand on something taller so that they're more like eye level, especially for like close-up scenes. I think it's really funny. But so far I'm enjoying part 2 a lot more, and I'm just gonna go ahead and finish it.
My advice is that you file a harassment complaint against Krista Peterson, citing malicious intent.
I don't want to antagonize her.
What more could she do to you? Boil your bunny?
So I just decided to finish part 2 and then I immediately started part 3. So I am an hour and 6 minutes into part 3, but I have some things to say about part 2. So there's a sex scene before the court hearing or whatever that they had, and that, in my opinion, was really well done. I think they did a great job with that, and I loved the music that they used. And I believe that is a song that was created for this series, for these movies. The like courtroom scene I thought was fantastic. Everybody's acting was phenomenal from everybody, and Melanie's acting was especially fantastic when the courtroom scene was over and there was a confrontation between Gabriel and Julia, I thought Melanie really shone her acting in that scene. Overall, I really liked part 2. I did enjoy it more than part 1, and part 2 kind of ended around page 258. On page 259, there's a scene between Julia and her dad about them talking about her and Gabriel breaking up. That was not in the movies. I mean, that's a scene that they took out, but we didn't need it. It was like a page, so obviously that makes sense that they didn't include that. And then part 3 picks up pretty much at page 261. So far in part 3, I really liked the scene where Gabriel and Julia reunite when they're at her place and the power goes out and it's raining. I really loved that scene. I thought they did a really good job with it. I know that Tosca has always said she really loves scenes to kind of sit. She loves silence between scenes, and sometimes I can feel that it's a little awkward or it's a little cringe, but in that specific scene, I thought all of the pauses and the quietness were just perfect, especially with like no music. I just thought it was really well done, and I really liked their acting in that scene. And I especially feel with Julio, I think he's really great at expressing pain in a way that's like not so obvious that he's in pain, but you can tell that he is hurt by his character's actions. Like, you can just see that he is such a great actor. And I remember when he was first cast and he had such a thick accent and everybody was like so angry about that, and I remember not really caring that much. I just wanted to know that he was a good actor, and I definitely feel like you can see them improve in these 3 movies, and I think they just have a lot more chemistry and they're a lot more comfortable with each other and everything, and I feel like it really shows. I'm definitely enjoying their acting in all of Gabriel's Rapture. It's definitely not as cringy or awkward as Gabriel's Inferno. Even though I thought Gabriel's Inferno was pretty well done, I definitely think this is elevated. I will say I'm also really enjoying Tosca's directing. I feel like she didn't go too hard on the letting a scene sit. There are still some scenes that I think are a little too long, or some scenes that are a little too short and kind of unnecessary, but I think overall they've done a really good job so far. And I mean, I still have an hour and 6 minutes left, so I'm going to continue watching the rest. I don't know if I mentioned this, but part 3 of Gabriel's Rapture is 2 hours and 12 minutes.
I thought I could court you while you were my student and get away with it. I was wrong. Forgive me.
So I just finished watching part 3. I'm officially done watching Gabriel's Rapture. For part 3, I did really enjoy it. I will say the wedding ceremony definitely looked off. I think there were some people that had like a green screen or something, because some of the guests looked like they weren't actually there, which I'm assuming they shot the wedding ceremony in Italy, so it makes sense that they couldn't have all of the guests actually be there in person. So that scene was a little weird. I didn't really love that. The proposal scene I really liked. Both Julio and Melanie seemed very into it. They were both crying and emotional, and it was very beautiful and heartwarming. I'm trying to decide which part is my favorite. Maybe part 3, but I also like how part 2 had a little bit more storyline going on. But overall, I feel like Gabriel's Rapture for the movies are definitely stronger than Gabriel's Inferno's movies. I just feel like the acting, the directing, even the music is a lot better. I definitely feel like they've improved with everything. I really loved all the sets and the setting, and nothing felt off with like the lighting or audio or anything like that. I feel like everything was pretty perfect in that way, aside from the wedding ceremony. But I feel like for all 3 parts, everything flowed pretty well, and it didn't seem like anything was off. Obviously the acting from everybody was fantastic, even like some people that just had 1 or 2 scenes. I thought everybody did a really good job. The dialogue was pretty similar to the book, which is kind of what I expect from passionflix. I have always said this, I do wish that they would try to stray further from book dialogue just because it's not as natural, but I understand why they like to include the book dialogue. I mean, it makes it a little bit more of an accurate adaptation, but there were some lines that were like a little cringy or uncomfortable that I feel like they shouldn't have included, but that's just obviously my personal opinion. The music, the soundtrack, every song that they used, I really liked. I genuinely loved the mix of having some music in the background and then having some scenes where it was complete silence. I like that mixture, and I feel like they had kind of a happy medium with that. Also, in general, I'm talking about all 3 parts right now, not just part 3. I'm talking about the adaptation as a whole. In each part, there's kind of like one major sex scene, and I feel like they've done a really good job with their sex scenes. They show quite a bit, but it's very like tasteful, and it doesn't feel like they're trying too hard to show a lot, but then also not show enough, if that makes sense. Some scenes definitely did feel long, and they could have cut a lot of things down, but again, the book is very long, very detailed. There's a lot of very small, drawn out scenes, so it makes sense that they just continue that in the movies. I think as of right now, part 2 and part 3 of Gabriel's Rapture are kind of equal in the way that I like them. I definitely think they are stronger than part 1. I think for part 1 of Gabriel's Rapture, I'm gonna rate it 3.5 out of 5 stars. And then part 2 and part 3, I'm going to give a 4 out of 5 stars. I've also decided to keep my rating of 4 stars on the book. Even though I did say there was stuff that was boring and stuff that kind of dragged, I do love this book. I do love Gabriel and Julia, and I do love domestic, kind of everyday scenes between characters. I like to know everything that's going on, even if it's just like the simplest thing. And the more I thought about it, the more I just feel like I want to keep my 4-star rating. I feel like I didn't really have much to say about the book, which I kind of feel bad about, but this is my 4th time reading it. I don't have much commentary on it. I will link some videos where I've talked about Gabriel's Rapture before. I think that's probably the most difficult part about doing this series, because I love it and I've read it multiple times, that I don't have any fresh commentary on it. I just genuinely love this story and these characters, and I love how the big message of this series is forgiveness. Not only forgiving others, but forgiving yourself, and learning and trying to become a better person, and how true love will always win, and how if you're meant to be with that person, it will happen. I feel like all of those messages are what this series is, or at least to me it is anyways. I feel like I should have rewatched my own videos about Gabriel's Inferno, because I'm kind of forgetting everything that I said about the movies and even the book. I think the 3rd book is my favorite in the series. Actually, technically the 4th book is my favorite, Gabriel's Promise. I forget that that one exists, but I love Gabriel's Promise, then Gabriel's Redemption, then Gabriel's Inferno, and then this one. Just because I don't really like the whole separation thing that happens and that whole conflict. I do feel like the Gabriel's Rapture movies are better than the Gabriel's Inferno movies. I'm actually much more excited for Gabriel's Redemption now. I guess depending on if they make it into 3 parts, which I'm assuming they will, I'm probably going to end up waiting until all 3 parts are out, just because I kind of liked doing this whole video in one go. As for an adaptation in general, I feel like they did a superb job. Like always, passionflix tries to include as much as they can from the book. It is pretty accurate. Anything that they did take out, it wasn't anything super memorable, so it didn't take anything away from the story. If I really think about it, they're kind of equal for me. I feel like the book and the movies are equal. I love them both for different reasons, but at the end of the day, it's equal. Even though I really enjoyed everybody's performance in these movies, I do have to say that Julio is a standout for me. I think his performance is always on point. I just feel every emotion when I see him acting. Like, I can just feel what he's feeling, and I feel like he is just such a good actor. Melanie is fantastic as well, but I do feel like sometimes she's a little off, or maybe that she tries a little too hard sometimes, but she's still a fantastic actor, like, no doubt. Both of them together is just amazing, and I'm so happy that they were both cast, and I can't wait to see them in the next movies. Overall, it was a really good adaptation, and I'm really happy with how they brought this book to life. Let me know if you have read this book and what your thoughts are on the book, and let me know if you've watched the movies and how you feel about them. Let me know your thoughts on this whole series overall. I think that's kind of it that I have to say about the book and the movie. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, follow me on all my other social media, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!